Well, it's a little bit different, but what we're going to do is the last one, just to demonstrate how you can draw on a square grid, but not necessarily have to have everything be in that square. Much like the first icon here with the monitor icon, we're going to draw a magnifying glass. And I know it seems obvious and typical, but what's really important about drawing things that aren't perfect squares that are fitting to square grids is demonstrating the diagonal drawing so that something can fit in perfectly. So let's go into our last icon placeholder. And I guess this is as good a time as any to make sure that we're saving. So when I'm saving this file, I'm going to save it in this folder that is CourseBirdie demo files, and we'll call it iconset.ai. When I'm saving this, and I want to show this just to make sure that everyone is on the same page, I'm going to save this with a legacy format of Illustrator CS5. Now, that is going to make sure that people using this with older forms of Illustrator can get into this project and work on it. This warning doesn't apply. It's dealing with appearance attributes, which we haven't used, and it's also dealing with fonts, and there are no fonts in this file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save on that, and now we have the file saved out to an Illustrator format that's going to work with the majority of users' programs. So let's go ahead and go into icon 4, and this is going to be a little different because we're going to draw a magnifying glass. The ellipse tool, the L, we're going to first block out our guides there so we're not drawing on top of them. We're going to draw something that's a little bit larger than the bounding box, than the top left would imply. So we're going to do 60 by 60. If I could, there we go. All right, so now we're going to duplicate the style. I'm going to bring this inside, and we have our outside border of magnifying glass. Now it's going to look a little funny, but we do want to make sure that it's visible from a small size. And what's interesting about magnifying glass icons in general is that they're often drawn with the larger part, the actual magnifying portion of the glass, to the left, and so as if it was being held by someone who's right-handed. So we're going to go ahead and, for drawing purposes, we're going to line this up. We want to make sure that we're drawing to the edge of this 80 by 80, and so that's actually 113 pixels tall. So we're not working in squares anymore. We're just drawing outside of them. So this line demonstrates how long we need our magnifying glass to be. And we're going to go ahead and say, we're going to click and drag this over to the side. And we're going to use the rectangle tool to draw this out. So drawing it down, so it's about 20 pixels tall. I'm going to center this on our artboard. So that's really good there. I want to make the top portion a little bit wider than the bottom. It's just like the handle of a... And then we're going to duplicate this down. And we're going to have it come to the bottom. And I'm going to show you something in a second, how we're going to get the magnifying glass to look like the rest of our icons. So we have it set like that. I'm going to bring this down. The handle is going to be a little bit more of the actual object. And let's drag it to here. I'm going to make sure that all of these have... if you ever want to make sure you're selecting the right object, if you double click on it, it brings up isolation mode. It's always a good trick to have. So let's check 12 wide on the top and 8 wide on the bottom. All right, now let's double check to make sure that this is actually, we're going to do Command G to group it, and we're going to put it into its place. So we actually need this to be a bit smaller, so drag it to here. We're going to double check our outline mode. Drag it up. And we're going to drag this, and we're holding shift this whole time to make sure that we have it keeping all the proportions we've just worked at making. So that is going to be the beginning of the magnifying glass. Command Shift G to ungroup, or you could always just Control select, Control click, and then ungroup. So we're going to go back in isolation mode. I'm going to delete this. We don't need that anymore. Double click on this to bring up isolation mode, just so we can select points more easily. The letter A on your keyboard, and then select these top two. And with diagonals, because we've drawn it at a 45-degree angle, we can just go on our arrow keys, up, left, and then we're in the right spot. To keep in mind, actually, or to keep in theme with this shadow that we've established here, we can bring it back down a little bit there. So I'm just bringing it up and to the left one time. Same is going to be applied here. Again, isolation mode if you're in V, if you're in selection mode, and then once you're in isolation mode, click A on your keyboard, tap A to bring up the direct select. Now we have that going. So we have that going. The last thing I'm going to do is to round this out. Make sure that it's let's group these all. Little details matter because a lot of things are not used at the scale that you think or want them to be used. Meaning that if you have an app, you never know when it's going to be airplayed onto a TV or it's going to be used on a larger screen that you originally intended for. So it's good to double check things up close. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to ungroup that, Command Shift G. I'm going to grab this point with Shift C, move it to the edge. Go. And then I'm going to Shift C, but then grab the edge of this. And we're going to make it into its own border radius of 4, like that. And we want to double check by drawing a square rectangle tool, using rectangle tool with this, and then we'll do shape, and we really only have to do the bottom right. And close, but I didn't draw it perfectly, so let's fix that. All right, so here is the point, and we're holding Shift on these to make sure we're grabbing the right part of the anchor, and it's just about nudging it. Okay, that is going to be good for us. So now we have the bit of the rounded corner, and I'm just going to make a small adjustment. I'm going to make sure that these are a little bit wider, so we can select using A again, and we'll double click, and we'll make sure the bottom, that looks good. And the last thing we're going to do is draw the inside with the ellipse tool. Shift click, align to key object, click the outside object, align the borders, bring it inside, and then we want to drop that back down to 2 pixels because that's what we've done the whole time, and that's the style we've established. All right, so it looks like we've got our 4 icons. I'm going to combine a few things and finalize these, but I'm pretty pleased at how they've turned out. The laptop could use just a little bit more work here. I'm going to see if my past assumption was wrong. If I bring the 4 pixel border radius back, And then I bring this up. Yeah, that's looking a bit better. Because the rounded edges need to go with the rest of the keyboard, just like a regular laptop would. Yeah, that's looking a bit better. So there you have it, 4 icons drawn in a mixed line style. I will include an icon set of 12 of these so that you can play around with them, and you can feel free to change the styles you'd like. To create fills, what you could do is, if you wanted to change, you would to make a fill style, you'd want to align the stroke to center so that you have a bit more of an idea of how it's going to behave when you remove the center. And you go ahead and put, with this small center in front, you do the shape minus. So now you have an object like that, and you can actually just flip the mode. So you could flip it into that. So we could do that for these. So if you set them all to that, if you combined these styles and you flipped, you could see what it would look like in a fill mode. And a lot of times icons are designed to be used in fill and stroke modes. So if you want to, you can convert these to fill modes pretty easily or adapt them to your own projects. Feel free to use any of the icons in this set under Creative Commons attribution for any kind of projects you'd like. Just don't resell them. That's the only thing I ask.